Hello, Libra. So we are looking for a message for you for the month of November. So we're asking about the message that wants to come forward for Libra for the month of November. Message for Libra for the month of November. I like starting off by asking, this is what I do in my personal readings, is I always ask first, what wants to come forward? What's important for, the querent to know at this time? And I feel like it's a good question because it leaves it really open and it allows like the most potent thing to come through, like what is the thing that really wants to be known? And it allows that to come forward. Okay, so we're not starting off with like specific questions about specific things. We're asking a very general question about what wants to be known. And so we're asking what wants to be known for Libra. One more card. And we have the Queen of Swords, the Magician, and the Knight of Swords. I'm going to get one more card, at least one more card. There we go. Okay, we got two. All right, so we have here Nine of Cups and King of Cups also. Okay, so we have Queen of Swords, Magician. I'm going to move these down just so that we can see them a little bit better. Okay. Queen of Swords, Magician, Nine of Cups, King of Cups. Wow, we got lots of people here. Oh, did I say Magician? I did say Magician. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. Give me a second to kind of feel into it a little bit. Queen of Swords. Yeah, okay. So we got the Queen of Swords and the Knight of Swords here. And they are the surrounding energy for the Magician. Okay, let's take a look. I'm kind of feeling like this sassiness from this Queen of Swords, Libra. It's interesting because it's like I just got a hit of that crown is stolen. The crown is stolen. What does that mean? The crown is stolen. Yeah, it's like imposter. Interesting. We'll come back to that. Okay. So then the Magician, I love the Magician, of course, right? The Magician is like that really great energy of being in this space of like having all of the tools that you need, right? To make whatever you want happen. You have, all the knowledge, the skills and abilities to create. Yeah, the Magician is about like, it's kind of like about manifestation. It's about being ready and being creative. It's also about alchemy. Like, this particular Magician, has her pot here, and she has all the ingredients to throw into that pot in order to make whatever concoction she's trying to make. So this is a really great energy of being in that space of being very capable, right, to make whatever you want happen. And so that's what's like, it's present for you here in November, is like really being the Magician, like really being able to take all of your learning, take all of your skills and abilities and experience, and put it together in order to really create something for yourself, to make something for yourself, to like alchemize different energies and, create something that you've been wanting. We also have the Knight of Swords here. And the Knight of Swords does kind of, knights are about movement. And the Knight of Swords is typically a card of like fast moving energy. It can sometimes be a little bit impulsive, like you're rushing into things. And here in this particular card, this Knight of Swords, this cat is like missing an arm, right? So, sometimes it's really communicating the idea that sometimes when we rush into things, we're not taking the time necessary to be more deliberate, is what I'm feeling, right? To like just be more careful and cautious and thoughtful and deliberate about your actions, and instead you're being much more impulsive and you're rushing forward without having all of the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, that you need in order to like move forward in a very balanced and productive and magical way. Okay. So this kind of brings me back now. I'm kind of understanding this Queen of Swords a little bit better. I do feel for you, Libra, for the month of November, is that you might be jumping into something too quickly. And it makes sense that this imposter syndrome, right? This imposter syndrome is something that a term that gets thrown around quite a bit. But what I immediately felt from the Queen was that she stole that crown. She didn't really earn it yet. And so I have to back up a little bit, because it's like imposter syndrome is like feeling like you're an imposter when you've already kind of when you do have the ability, when you have done the work and all of these things, right? But here I'm kind of feeling her just like simply as an imposter. And so don't take that in a harsh way, right? Because what that's communicating to me is not necessarily imposter, but that you're not ready yet. Whatever this thing is that you are, working to manifest, I feel like you're not quite ready yet. You're not quite there yet. And if you rush into it without, if you rush into it, trying to get to this place where you've earned the crown, if you rush into it too quickly, to manifest, this thing without having the proper tools, the proper knowledge, the proper skills, the proper abilities, you're going to lose something along the way. And it's going to be something, crucial, okay? Like this arm is missing. This cat's leg is missing. And so if you rush into this thing, this place where you want to be, and I do feel it is a bit ego-based, like being in a position, right? The Queen archetype is like being in a position of status. If you rush into trying to get into this position of status, not only will you or could you not get there, but when you arrive there, it won't be real. It won't feel real. It won't, because it's not earned, because it's like you went so fast, you didn't go through the proper steps, you didn't take the time to carefully measure out all of the ingredients, right, to place into this pot in order for this witch cat to make her concoction, right? So like, the example that's coming up is if you are trying to come up with a spell or like, some concoction to create some kind of magic with something, and you don't take the time to measure out the portions correctly, or you don't use the right ingredients, like, it calls for cinnamon, but I only have cumin, so we use the cumin, like that kind of thing, like taking these shortcuts, you're not going to come up with the right concoction. You're going to end up with something that is like completely different, or something that is like, it's just not the right thing. And it could very well be detrimental. So say you add cumin instead of cinnamon, but that recipe actually ends up being a recipe for for exactly the opposite of what you're trying to create, right? You catch my drift here? So, I feel like this is a bit of a harsh message, but I feel like it kind of needs to be heard. It's like, you know, let me put it in a little bit more neutral way, I suppose, is like, what are you rushing into? What are you moving towards that you really want in order to gain some kind of status? Like, what are you rushing into to get this status, but you're not taking the proper steps to really truly earn this status that you're after? Okay. um and are you realizing that not taking these proper steps, not having the appropriate knowledge, the appropriate skills, or the appropriate abilities, is going to cost you in trying to move forward without those things, without those proper steps, without those proper materials? Trying to move forward without those things is going to cost you, and it's going to cost you pretty significantly. Losing an arm, losing a leg is pretty significant, right? So take a look at that, right? And also back up a little bit and like ask yourself, like, what is this status you're trying to achieve, and why are you trying to achieve it? Like, what is it for? Egoic reasons? Typically, like, I mean, status is, very much linked to ego, right? Or like, what is this end goal that you're trying to get? What is the purpose here? Okay, so let's look at these. So then we have the Nine of Cups and the King of Cups. Yeah, okay. Okay. So it's like you're rushing into this Queen of Swords, to achieve this status of royalty, right? Whatever it is, the status of that boosts your ego, whatever it is. But what you really want is this status, the King of Cups status, okay? You don't really want this status that is not entirely earned. You want this status. This status is earned, okay? This is like, the Queen of Cups can really be an energy sometimes of like, being a real bee, to like get what you want, and, cutting people out, and, cutting through things in order to like, achieve this direction or this thing that you want, but at the cost of like having to cut other things out, including maybe people that might care about you, or things that actually are valuable, or stuff like that. So it's like, you don't really want to be in that position. You want to be in the King of Cups position. And I feel like the King of Cups like really has true respect, and the respect, not that the Queen of Swords is not respected, but the King of Cups kind of just really more communicates that energy of being respected, because he's compassionate, right? He's understanding. He has a depth of emotion. He can connect with you on an emotional level. He can connect with people on an emotional level. And people respect that, because then they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel respected, they feel honored. And in return, they feel those things for the King of Cups. They honor the King of Cups. They respect him. They value him, right? And this is really the place that you want to be. This is really the status that you want to achieve, because like, that's really what you're looking for. That's the dream. Yeah, the Nine of Cups is the dream, the wish fulfilled, that feeling of fulfillment of, something that you've longed for, that you've that you've loved. And so it's like, this really is where you want to be, because it's going to be much more fulfilling. Like when I look at the Queen of Cups, I almost see her as like this stray cat, kind of raggedy almost. I don't know if it's my eyes that are not that great, but like I'm getting like all of this like raggediness over here. And she just kind of has this feeling of like, I don't know, like being like worn and strung out and not really authentic. Yeah. So Libra, this might be a little bit of a challenging month for you, because I do feel like there are some realizations that come forward for you with these swords here, about like wanting a particular thing, but if you want that thing, like stay true to that thing that you want. Stay true to what it is. Like you want to be loved and respected and honored and valued. Then you really have to exercise and act those qualities out within yourself, for yourself, for others, before you will ever receive that energy in return. Okay? So instead of trying to rush into something without having the proper tools, taking the proper steps, without paying your dues, so to speak, instead of rushing into something without having done those things, without having fully earned the thing that you're going after, just like be patient and take your time and really keep your eye on what it is that you're like, what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay. And I feel like that's really going to help you out through this month. Like really keep your eye on, the purpose of this thing that you want. Why do you want that? And really taking the proper steps in order to get there. Okay. I'm just having this other example come forward that I kind of feel like I want to share. So for example, you want to write this book, and it's like you want to write this book because you want to be known as an author. You want to assume, the identity of like a great author who wrote this, fabulous, creative, wonderful book, that is just like New York Times bestseller, and it gives you a lot of status. It's very satisfying to the ego to have accomplished this feat of writing this book and, getting into the bestsellers list and all of this stuff. But if you don't take the proper steps, you don't really put a lot of attention into learning the proper grammar or learning a flow or learning, voice or tone or style, and you just kind of rush through it and throw it all out there. And then, you do all of this marketing and, publicizing and all of this stuff and touting this wonderful book, and, and to get you, to this status of being, recognized and acknowledged and, whatever. But then people read it and it's like, this sucks. They're clearly, this person didn't know how to put a story together. Clearly they didn't know how to adopt a particular voice or engage or create suspense and blah 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 blah. And so like the time that you did put into it was completely wasted because you didn't bother to actually like really learn how to write. You didn't actually bother to go and get feedback from other people, from from authorities in the field, and so you did in fact become the imposter. And so this, instead, like really take the time. Like if you really need to build up your writing skills, go take the time to do that. You're not ready to write the book yet. You need to build up that skill first of like learning, proper grammar or increasing your vocabulary or whatever it is. I'm not a writer, so I don't know. But whatever those things are, whatever the ingredients are, whatever the tools are that you need to do a good job at something because you love it, because it brings you joy to write, because it brings you joy to exercise your creativity, go and do those things first, because those proper steps are going to achieve you, a real earned status rather than this like imposter status, okay? You know, just one more example, because I love to do art and I'm not very good at it, right? And I know that if I practice and practice, I'll get better. But like it's funny because I had this vision of this picture that I wanted to create in my mind. And it had all of these different elements and these components that like meant different things and blah 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 blah. And I had the image in my mind. I knew exactly what it was going to look like. And then I brought out the paper and the materials and I tried to put it onto paper, this image that was in my mind, and it was absolutely awful. It was like, oh my God, it looks like, very juvenile. And it was very disheartening to see, to know this image in my mind of what I wanted to create and just absolutely bomb, right? Because I just don't have the skill yet. I need to put the time in and develop the skill in order to then have the ability to see an image in my mind and then have the skill and the material, etc., to actually make it manifest on paper. All right, I'm going to stop there. So I hope you get the gist of this. It feels a little bit of a challenging message to communicate. Feels like a challenging energy to kind of be in, because I do completely understand that desire to rush something through. But really it's in your best interest to, take a step back, to develop your skills, do a little bit more research, take some classes, and then slowly move forward in a very like systematic, progressive way. All right. Alrighty, Libra. Love you lots. Best of luck. Bye-bye.